Hey guys, Bobgar here, and I wanted to quickly cover some breaking Magic the Gathering news that I think is interesting and affects me personally, so I want to talk about it real quick. So, they've decided to change the rules about split cards and the converted mana cost that they count as having in your hand. So this was an interesting thing before. Basically, depending on the circumstances, they could count as the lower number or the higher number or the two numbers summed together. And they've done away with that. Now it is always the number of the two converted mana costs added together. And the result of this is that a number of decks will be affected, one of which is Kari Zevs Expertise, so basically expertise style decks that were using this to cheat breaking and entering out early, or Beck call out early, so they could basically used the play a card from your hand with converted mana cost 2 or less to play these, and when they're playing them from their hand, they're allowed to fuse them, so they fuse them off of the Kari Zevs Expertise and get to cast both effects. So this deck is no more. You can no longer Violent Outburst and hit Boom Bust to destroy all lands. Isochron Scepter can no longer target Far and Away and Bound and Determined and cast those effects. And then Counterbalance used to be able to, with Wear Tear, when you flipped it, count it as a 1 mana spell, a 2 mana spell, or a 3 mana spell for the purposes of countering, which was very, very powerful. And Counterbalance can no longer do that. So it's not going to affect the decks that run Counterbalance all that much. I don't know the Isochron Scepter deck that does this, and Violent Outburst is just not a real deck. So the big deck that it affects is Kari Zevs Expertise, which is a deck that was just kind of coming into fruition. And so over the weekend, I got a raise on Friday, and I decided Saturday that I would spend a little bit of that on Magic Online. It wasn't a big raise, but I was like, oh, I can spend 40 or 50 bucks on Magic Online and buy a deck. So I bought Kari Zevs Expertise. So that was like 3 days ago now. So this is obviously really sad for me. On a personal level, I'm out probably about 40 bucks. So the things on the left here are cards that I already own, so they didn't actually cost me anything. And then in the middle, this kind of 3 rows of cards will probably pretty much not see play anywhere and drop in price, but they might maintain a little bit because 1, they're still in standard, so maybe some standard decks will use them a little bit, and 2, they have some marginal use in other decks, and they could see them. You can still hit some things off of Expertise which are interesting, even though nobody's made a successful deck with them. So another big one that you can hit with Expertise are the Suspend card cycle that suspends for 0, because 0 is then their converted mana cost, so you can cast those off the Expertises, so Living End and things like that. But in most cases, Living End you're better off just cascading into, so probably these will be junk forever. I mean, they are still interesting effects, but they're not very useful without the other cards. Then these two are just basically going to be totally worthless. I think Breaking and Entering more so than Beck Call, but Breaking and Entering basically is just going to be a mill 8 cards, which is a weak card in Mill. Mill already has a lot of good cards if you wanted to run a Mill deck, and certainly way better than a double mana cost Mill 8. So this card is just going to be, basically is going to go down to 1 cent again, which is what it was before the Expertise things came out. So I got burned on that one a little bit. And Beck Call, I think there's some chance at some point in the future that Beck becomes an effect that decks want. It's certainly a powerful effect if you had something that said, hey, every time you draw a card, put a 1/1 into play. Obviously, you could go infinite with this, right? You could draw a card, put in a 1/1. From putting in 1/1, you draw a card, to put in a 1/1 to draw a card. So, like, the Beck style, I mean, I don't think they're going to make that design mistake, but the Beck style effect is kind of broken in combo-y decks, and you could still do something with it someday. But it's also going to drop to basically nothing. It's basically a worthless card now. And then the other cards I bought for it were 3 more copies of Emrakul. I already owned 1, and 4 copies of Grizzlebrand. I got them all for a little bit less than $10 each. I think the Emrakuls were 7 or 8, and the Grizzlebrands were like $9.50. I don't know. I shopped around and got pretty good prices on them, but still, this is almost $50 worth of cards. This is really only like 10 to 15, so these at least will be useful still. These are going to hold their price, but there's also no deck in Modern which uses them, so it feels really bad. The one deck that's like fringe playable that kind of uses both of them is Instant Reanimator, and that uses Through the Breach and Goryo's Vengeance. But the problem with that is the Goryo's Vengeances are $30 each or something like that, and so are the Through the Breaches. They might be 20, but still. So I would have to dump a ton of money into it if I wanted to make these useful. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to sell them back or sit on them or just try to make some fun brews with them. I mean, there are decks you can run with them that just aren't good, but they're still fun. Like you can run polymorph and things like that. I mean, it's not going to be a good deck. And again, so a lot of the problems with things like polymorph is you really only want one copy of Emrakul. But anyway, so yeah, I could do some things like that. So obviously this hurts me personally a lot. One, because I was excited about the deck. I played it a bunch. I was really enjoying it. I had a pretty good win rate. It was a lot of fun. And two, it's worse than banning. So when you ban a card, you make a deck not legal in a specific format. And this does not ban these cards. What it does is it makes the thing that makes the card interesting and useful not available to any format. So I can't try to transition this into Legacy. I can't play this even casually with my friends because it's literally no longer in the rules of the game. Even if I had this as a casual deck, and the build I have here is, by the way, a very casual build. This is not a top tier build of the deck. I basically can just no longer play this casually. You know, it's gone. And so I think on that level, it sucks a lot. When I think about it, when I look at it, do I think it's overall probably a good move for Magic? I think it probably is. I mean, obviously, whenever there's a banning, whenever something like this happens, somebody gets burned. It sucks that it was me this time. I do think the rule going forward is more clear than the last rule, but I will say that I also still don't think that rule is very clear. And I don't know. They might even have to change it again at some point. I guess not. Cards affected by the rule will inherently be less good because of the rule. Therefore, they probably won't have to change the rule. Because, I mean, as much as they might say, oh, it's for clarification, a lot of it is because they don't want people doing broken things, which is understandable. It's a big thing in Magic. You know, it's okay to have a little bit of brokenness in your game, but they don't want people doing tons and tons of broken things. And I certainly understand that too. I mean, I think there are logistical reasons why it makes it easier. It's mostly not that it's incorrect that they don't want people doing broken things. It's more that the reason they don't want people doing broken things isn't, in this case, because it's overpowered. In this case, this deck is definitely not overpowered. It's certainly not underpowered either, but it's not a top tier deck. It's a mid tier deck. And it's certainly not just because people feel cheated. It's because they get, you know, more judge calls, more confusion, more people upset because they don't understand what's going on. And they want to make the game clear. And even though their rule isn't very much more clear, the rule is still super confusing. The rule sides on not having broken things happen that could confuse the player, which I think was the point. So in the aftermath, the one thing I could do with these, which I'm probably not going to because I'm not super rich, I would potentially get a Legacy deck because this is the only one that really runs Emrakul and Grizzlebrand in the four of them. This is Sneak and Show. The problem with Sneak and Show is in paper it's $2,000 and in online monies it's still $900, and I'm not in a state where I'm rich enough to just drop $900 on an online deck. That's like the total I've spent on Magic Online. The 2 years I've been playing on Magic Online. That's probably not happening. So in conclusion, I think the rules change makes sense. I wish they had actually done it just by banning things that were problematic, but I think they might have suspected that there would be broken things in the future, one, and two, there still might be general confusion by people about how the rules worked. And again, I don't think this actually makes the rules less confusing, but it makes people have to use the rules less, which is therefore there's therefore less confusion because less people have to care about it. So overall, it's probably good for the game of the Magic. Very bad for me since my deck is banned in not only Standard, not only Modern, in every format ever as a rule. Can't even play it casually at the kitchen table unless I convince my friends that the rules are different than they are. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to go cry. I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey guys, Bobgar here. I just really wanted to quickly say, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you enjoy my content in general and would like to see more of it, subscribe. I'll be coming out with content, probably not as frequently as I would like, but I will be coming out with more content in the future. And please leave me comments and let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, both in terms of production and in terms of my play and my deck building and all that. Yeah, and again, as I always say, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.